AM 1280 Newstalk, KIT, 16 minutes after 7 o'clock on your Friday, 2/3 of the way through the month of July, which means August 7th will be on us before you know it. We're having our political roundtable. It was Richard Roundtree. Richard, that's who you're going for, just saying. Our conversations continue. Oh, you want your mic on? After the little display you put on here.
I push back on Dave while we're off the air, and what is he doing?
Yeah, that's what he does. He turns your mic off in mid-sentence.
Come on.
Sober up. Let's go. 14th District, State Representative, Position 1, held these last few years by Representative Norm Johnson. I believe 5 terms, 10 years. Norm Johnson has decided to retire. Open seat, open season. And we have a number of folks, 4 by my reading here, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats in pursuit of said seat.
Allegedly.
Oh, see now, you have no standing right now. You just stepped off the peat bog and into the quicksand, brother. I can't believe you did that. But yes, I can, because you're Richard Miller in the Larson Building. Look for him there. Chris Corry. Let's get to Chris. He prefers the Republican Party. He is a candidate. I've seen his signs. In fact, I had a visit with him a while back. And he's out and about doing his thing, seeking your vote. He's in the studio with us this morning. And we say, hey, Chris, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good to be here.
Good to have you. So we've kind of sort of got a template for these, and that's what Richard's talking about, is the deviation from the norm. But our template is this. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your family, your work, that sort of thing.
Sure,
and then
I'd
we'll
love to.
press into other things from there. But let's meet Chris Corry.
Hey, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate you carving out some time for me. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Inland, California. Grew up on a small farm down there. My parents, like a lot of Californians, escaped the state in the late 90s. Don't hold that against me. And relocated up to Western Washington. I went to high school and college over on that side of the state.
We could still hold that against you. I mean,
yeah, well, listen, the story has a nice happy ending.
Okay, good.
It follows all the right paths here. So met my wife, Jenica, at college, and she is born and raised here in the Yakima Valley. So
Aha! Go ahead.
She's my she's my anchor local, as I like to call her. We were pregnant with our second child, and we were looking for a place that we were going to settle down and live. And Yakima was where we decided would be the great place to raise our kids. And I will tell you, that was 6 years ago. Best decision I ever made. I love it here. I love the accountability of this town. I love that you don't go anywhere without seeing somebody you know, and you don't get that in a lot of places. You don't get that in California. You definitely don't get that on the west side. So it's been a blessing to be here. So
how many kids you got?
Currently 3.
Three,
You know,
okay.
There's always negotiations for more.
Sure.
So I have a 7-year-old Caden, my 4 3/4, because if I say 4, my daughter will correct me.
You bet.
McKinley, and my youngest Levi, who's 15 months.
Oh, sweet.
So.
Okay, so in your world of work, you real estate? Is that?
No, I'm a commercial insurance advisor, so I help commercial businesses protect their employees and their assets.
Okay. Is your wife a stay-at-home mom? She work?
She works as well. She is probably the hardest working woman I know. She has a job. She works for an insurance carrier. But in addition to that, she's on leadership with Junior League, and she's obviously, the better half of managing the chaos at home.
Sure. All right, so with the background of California and then Western Washington, what is it that's kind of nudged you into the political ring here? You've come to Central Washington, you like the people, you like the place, you like the values, and it's a good juxtaposition to what you have seen through your life, and figure that this might be the way to go. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but what nudges you into the race?
So there's a couple things. One, I grew up in a conservative household. I didn't really care much for politics until I got to the University of Washington, and that's actually where what I would like to say is where I became a conservative. I know that's not often what happens on college campuses with students as they go there, but I was more apolitical, and I started taking some classes and realized I was disagreeing with everything coming out of this professor's mouth, and happened to find the college Republican table one day and said, this is where I belong. So I spent 4 years working with them. I was actually elected to our student government there as a known conservative, and worked hard to represent those values.
What was your title?
I was the director of community relations for the Associated Students of the University of Washington.
Bam!
Boom.
That's a big title.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. It was
And for having a conservative-minded person in that sort of position, controlling message or whatever, I mean, that's a significant situation.
Well, we focused on, my biggest issues were always focusing on what do we have in common? What do we need to push forward as students that were issues that were important to us? So, and being a voice and listening to people, that was important to me because I worked with all the community groups.
Right.
And so listening to what their needs were and helping them get what they needed. So that kind of, brought me to where, seeing what's going on in California and having lived it, and my wife and I had lived it for a while. We lived down there together. I'm concerned about Washington heading that direction. The out of control spending, the out of control regulations, the out of control government. And that's kind of where I decided it was time to get involved in. I think I'm in a unique position. I've been in the private sector for the last 15 years. I'm a family guy. I have a mortgage. I know what it's like to try to make things work here, and I want to make sure we send people over there that understand those values.
Outstanding. All right, so let's do what we continue our template here. Can you give a grade to the current makeup of the legislature, how they've done this past session, and just general take on what you see them doing, good or bad, that you'd be joining if you win?
So I think it's changed over the last 2 years with the loss of the Republican leadership we had on. But I would say it's probably a low D, high F.
Yeah.
The problem is we've got just a bad makeup over there, and we're only 2 seats away from flipping it, and that's where I'm hoping to be over there to be part of that change. So going forward, I want to go over there to advocate for our principles and fight for what's good for Eastern Washington. We've had a government from Jay Inslee down that just tends to ignore our needs out here in favor of the West Side, and I want to change that.
All right. Issues of importance to you, besides just the general deportment of the body moving in a more liberal path all along and everything that comes with that. What kinds of issues in particular, you'll wind up on committees if you win,
Sure.
that sort of thing. What areas of interest do you choose?
Well, there's lots for me. I think the big ones are trying to keep down the regulations and the rules that are just being thrown at businesses. Our businesses are the backbone of our community, especially here in our valley with agriculture. And we're constantly seeing people who don't understand what it means to run a business, creating rules for businesses. I understand that we want to be fair to employees. We want to make sure employees are well treated. And that's all fine and good. But we're seeing regulations that don't go past the end of their nose to think about what the unintended consequences are. I'll give you an example. We look at piece rate work here in the valley that has been highly successful for both the farmers, the business owners, as well as the employees. It's an incentivized system that rewards those that work hard. And now that is under attack because some bureaucrat somewhere has seen that, well, they're not being paid when they move that ladder, or that, piece isn't being accounted for. So what's going to happen is potentially is we end up losing that piece rate work, or it goes down. And so the incentivization is gone. So now you're going to have employees who have no incentive to pick faster because they're being paid a flat rate. So now labor costs are going to go up because you're going to have to hire more workers. Oh, wait, we don't have enough workers as is right now. So it's that snowball rolling.
Sure.
And I look at the $15 minimum an hour that we're heading towards. That doesn't work on this side of the state. And there's no, what I would consider backdrops to help support business owners when people are starting, whether it's a training wage or, if you're going to hire people under the age of 16, they used to pay paid 80% of minimum wage. Mm-hmm. And it's not that people, that we are valuing them less. It's that they have less skills and the employer is investing in them.
Sure.
And so therefore, help out the employers.
They're receiving opportunity in addition to pay to get into the workforce in the first place.
You're getting that training, which is going to help you better yourself long term.
Chris, when you have things put on you as a taxpayer, say that you don't necessarily agree with, like the funding that we had to do through the McCleary decision, right? Some of us may not agree with that. We don't necessarily think we need to spend more money, but, darn it, the Supreme Court said we have to. So we're doing it. We're complying. So we're committed to that. So what areas of the state government do you see as potential spots to save? Where could we? What are we doing as a state, spending money that we don't need to, that we could actually change? Is there something there?
I think there's a lot. I mean, obviously you have your waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that's, an area that we can always look at. I've always said a government that runs best is a government that runs least. We just that out of control feeding on itself and growth and administration, from the colleges to, the various bureaucracies. That's stuff we need to look at for spending. I mean, right now with McCleary, we're spending over 50% of our state's budget on education. And obviously as a father who has kids in public school, I work with different committees at the West Valley School District. I'm committed to having strong and safe schools, but throwing money at things has never been the solution. Mm-hmm. And so, unfortunately, the legislature has to deal with what I don't know what the term is, but I'm calling it the fourth branch of our government, which is the legislative side of our Supreme Court, unfortunately. And it's out of control. The legislators are supposed to make the laws, and the Supreme Court is supposed to, interpret those laws to make sure that they comply with our Constitution. Mm-hmm. And it seems like we've lost that.
Speaking of schools, not necessarily from the McCleary standpoint, but let's talk about school safety. There's at least one, I think, initiative that's already gathered enough signatures that would institute some new gun controls. Whether that actually happens, that's up in the air at this point. But take guns, for instance, out of the equation. The core argument between gun rights and gun control folks, and tell me what you think we need to do to make schools safer that doesn't involve more gun laws.
Well, I don't think making schools safer would involve more gun laws. I think, as a matter of fact, I think that's very reactionary, it's very emotional, and it's not based on fact. So what we need to do is look at school safety modernization, and that's important. And that's something that we can all get behind. That's a common issue for all of us, whether you're Republicans or Democrats. My son goes to Apple Valley. That school is a wonderful school, wonderful teachers. Buildings are way out of date. So if we're not going to just rebuild, which, there's people arguing on both sides of that, you need to look at how do you modernize it. You modernize the safety. It was built in a time where, unfortunately, our society wasn't going in and randomly shooting up children. Mm-hmm. And, it's a very decentralized school, and you have to modernize those. That, again, putting in random gun restrictions isn't going to stop somebody from breaking the law. Unfortunately, if that were the case, we would have nobody doing drugs, and we would have no crime because we have laws against it right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All you do is punish people for law-abiding citizens, and those are the people that I support and don't want to punish. So,
all right, your pitch to the people of the 14th District. I think much of what you say will resonate, but at the same time, you're a new face, a new voice,
sure.
And you're trying to get your message out. You're in the elevator with all of Yakima. It's a little tight, a little crowded. Somebody forgot their deodorant, but the bottom line is you now have everybody's ears, and you get to say to them why they need to cast their vote for you in the primary in August. What do we tell them?
Well, here in the primary, I would be talking to my independent and conservative voters. I am a conservative, not just in name, but in my beliefs. I believe in limited government, fiscal responsibility, upholding all our constitutional rights. Unfortunately, my Republican opponent has been on the opposite side. She's supported Jay Inslee. She supported Patty Murray. She's given money to the Yakima County Democrats. On her city council, she has been in favor of a variety of tax increases, whether it was the car tab fee, which is a tax, or, the utility tax. Those aren't fiscally conservative ways to run a city, and I'm worried that if we elect somebody like that, they're going to do the same thing in Olympia, which is going to mean more property taxes. We've got Jay Inslee pushing a carbon tax, an income tax, and as my Republican opponent supported his reelection in 2016, so I have to assume she agrees with those because Jay Inslee's been terrible for this side of the state. He has favored the west side. He's vetoed stuff that would have benefited us from an economic perspective, and I want to go over there to be a voice of no, and I want to share our values and share our principles over there. Jay Inslee left this side of the state because of our values, and I moved here because of our values, and I think that that's important that we advocate those there.
Wow, just in time to hit the ground floor. Well said, Chris Corry. I think your message is going to resonate with a lot of folks. We are a top 2 system. very possible that we could have 2 Republicans, which would make for an interesting showdown. But either way, in the event that you do win and move on, we'd love to have you back and drill down on some of this stuff. But for now, as we say to everybody, best of good luck, and way to care enough about your community to step up and want to represent and take what we're all about over to the other side, try to make some common sense work over there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're tuned to The Source, News Talk 1280, KIT, the morning.